They say a hero's journey ends when the war is won, but for Odysseus, the battle after Troy was silence. For 7 years, he stood where land kissed the sea, each morning the same, each sunset a sigh. No sails on the horizon, no stars that led home, only waves that curled and vanished like forgotten prayers. Calypso's island was paradise, lush, fragrant, sun-drenched. But to a man with a name echoing across the Aegean, it was a golden prison. He did not curse her, he did not beg, he simply waited, in silence, for the gods or the wind or fate, whichever came first. She was a daughter of Titans, a goddess untouched by time, with eyes like dew on morning leaves. Calypso watched him, day after day, pacing the shore like a restless tide. She had given him song, warmth, shelter, even love. But Odysseus never looked at her with the eyes of a man in love. He looked through her, as if searching the wind for a voice only he could hear. Immortal though she was, Calypso began to learn what it meant to be mortal, to want, to wait, and to be denied. She gave him everything, her island, her song, her immortal arms. But love, when given without return, becomes a chain, silken, silent, stronger than bronze. Each night, she waited for him to speak her name with warmth, and each night, he spoke none. He did not leave, but he was never truly there. Odysseus, though clothed in silk and kissed by a goddess, was starving in his soul, for freedom, for Ithaca, for a life with weight, with meaning, with choice. And Calypso, eternal, unaging, untouched by time, now knew what it meant to be mortal, to hope in vain. Even paradise cannot defy Olympus forever, and so the sky cracked, not with storm, but with a whisper from the king of gods. Zeus had watched long enough. The balance was broken. A mortal had been kept from his path, and destiny does not wait on love. Hermes, swift-footed and silver-tongued, flew from Mount Olympus. His wings did not roar, they rustled like prophecy in the leaves. He did not come with fire or wrath, just a message: release him, let Odysseus go, let the sea claim what it once carried. And Calypso, whose heart had never known limits, felt the first tear fall, not from her eyes, but from her soul. Calypso did not scream. She did not rage. The gods had spoken, and she, though immortal, understood what it meant to lose. Her island, once bright and fragrant, dimmed with her silence. The vines no longer danced. The birds sang softer. Even the waves seemed to hold their breath. She led him to the shore without a word. Her hands trembled only once, when she touched his and let go. Odysseus stood still, not victorious, not eager, but solemn. For even freedom can taste like grief when it costs something sacred. And so the spell broke, not with thunder, but with goodbye. She gave him wood, rope, tools, not because the gods told her to, but because love, real love, does not beg to be kept. Odysseus built his own escape, not a grand ship, but a raft, uneven, humble, barely worthy of the man who once sailed a fleet of kings. He set sail with no stars to follow, no sails to catch the wind of prophecy, only the will to try, and the weight of farewell on his back. Behind him, Calypso watched until the horizon swallowed him whole. And when he vanished, she did not cry, because immortals do not weep. But the island did, and the sea, deep, endless, cruel, began to move once more. He was almost a shadow on the water, a man with no sail, no star, no compass, only a name, and Poseidon knew that name too well. The god had not forgotten what Odysseus had done. He had blinded the Cyclops, Poseidon's own son, and boasted as if gods could be outwitted. So the sea stirred, not with waves, but with memory, the kind that breaks ships and drowns names. Storm clouds twisted like serpents, winds howled with the voices of the drowned. And Odysseus, who had survived 10 years of war, now had to survive the sea's wrath. Not all enemies carry swords, some wear crowns of salt. The sea took him. It tore his raft, crushed his breath, tangled his limbs in the ropes of the deep. He did not scream. Heroes do not scream when swallowed by death. They simply sink. But fate had not finished with Odysseus. Not yet. From the foam, a shimmer rose, a goddess, not of war or vengeance, but mercy. Ino, once mortal, now sea spirit, draped in light and salt, came to him with no words, only a veil. She placed it in his hands, a gift, a promise, a second breath in a drowning world. And just like that, the sea lost its prize. The sea did not kill him. It stripped him of pride, of armor, of war. He came to shore not as a king, not as a hero, but as a man, bruised, salt-burned, breathing. The island of Scheria, land of the Phaeacians, welcomed him not with swords, but silence. Trees swayed, birds sang, and the sun, gentle and golden, did not ask his name. He crawled from the tide like a forgotten god, wrapped in seaweed, dragging breath from the sand. But the fire in his eyes, that had never drowned. Because Odysseus was not built to be worshipped. He was built to survive. The gods have many ways of answering prayers. Sometimes they send storms, and sometimes they send daughters. Nausicaa, daughter of the Phaeacian king, came not with guards, but with laughter. Her maidens sang. Their voices stirred the trees. The sand beneath their feet had not known fear. And then they saw him, tangled hair, torn cloak, salt-crusted beard, a man rising from the forest like a myth too stubborn to die. They froze. Except Nausicaa. She did not scream. She did not run. She met his eyes. And in that moment saw not a beggar, but a hero in exile. Odysseus did not kneel. He did not boast. He simply asked for clothes and a way home. They bathed him, clothed him, fed him, but did not ask his name. For in Phaeacia, stories mattered more than titles, and this man, this stranger with storm in his eyes, carried one. He stood before King Alcinous, not as a beggar, not as a guest, but as a tale waiting to be spoken. And when the music quieted, when the torches flickered low, he spoke. Of fire and wooden horses, of gods and blood, of Hector, of Troy. And those who listened wept, not for the war, but for the weight of memory, because only a man who had lived through hell could speak of it so gently. He did not ask, but they offered. King Alcinous rose, and with him the honor of Phaeacia. "You have fought enough," he said. "Now let the sea carry you home, not as driftwood, but as a king." And so they gave him gold, wine, fine cloth, and most of all, a ship. Not a fleet, not a warship, but a vessel of peace, silent, swift, bound for Ithaca. Odysseus bowed, not as a beggar, but as a man who had learned the weight of gratitude. And when he stepped aboard, he did not look back, for home was no longer a memory, it was ahead. Not all journeys end when feet touch home. Some begin again. The ship glided into Ithaca's bay at dusk. No trumpets, no crowds, only cliffs, trees, and the wind that still remembered his name. Odysseus did not call out. He did not run to the palace, for he knew time may change land, but men change faster. He walked with care, each step heavier than war, because home, when lost too long, can turn into enemy ground. and as he stood beneath the old olive tree, he felt it. The house was his. But he was a stranger now. He was a king, but kings who rush home are the first to die. Odysseus shed his cloak, his pride, his past. He covered himself in dust, rags, silence. Athena, in her wisdom, veiled his face. She knew sometimes a lion must walk as a shadow before the roar. He entered the halls where once his name echoed. Now, laughter of strangers filled the air, men feasting, not guests, but thieves in fine robes. They saw a beggar, a man broken by the world. But inside him burned the memory of spears, of gods, of blood, and a vow to take back not just his home, but the honor they thought was lost. They laughed, at the beggar, at the old bow, at fate, but fate was listening. Penelope, with hands that trembled but heart unshaken, spoke, "He who can string the bow of Odysseus shall have my hand." One by one they failed, fingers bled, pride cracked, and then the beggar stood. He took the bow, dusted it with care, like a friend lost, now found. He pulled the string, it sang, and when the arrow flew, it did not ask names. It found liars, thieves, the dead who still breathed. And in that hall, kingship returned, not with a crown, but with blood.